There's a PC outside the door, and if he tells me to stay here, then that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, you do that. Be a good little girl for the big strong man.
Oh, there we go. I know what this is about.
What?
It's about Shona.
Is it?
Of course it is. Come on. I mean, literally, Kit could negotiate world peace. He'd still be the guy that slept with your wife.
Well, yeah. I mean, he's 7'2" of bad news, but that's not the point. The problem is thick as thieves we Mick.
The talk of the street.
Talk of the street.
The talk of the street.
Talk of the street.
The talk of the street.
Talk of the street.
The talk of the street.
Talk of the street.
Hello and welcome to episode 358 of the Talk of the Street, an unofficial Coronation Street catch-up podcast that was surprised to learn that the precinct is a cul-de-sac, and I'm sure Tinker was surprised too. I'm Gavin.
And I'm surprised that I actually cried during this week's episodes.
It was a 5-hanky week on Corrie this week.
It really was. It really was. I'm pretty sure Craig says, where is he going? This is a dead-end road.
He does.
Yeah, so he knew it was a cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Still didn't display sufficient knowledge to do anything about it.
No.
Which is really what I was getting at.
Or, park his car in a way that there was no escape for Mick.
Which is exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah. Lots of people blaming themselves for Craig's death, but...
It was all Fizzy's fault. Anyway, how are you this week?
Pretty good. Pretty good. You and I and the big one went to see Hamilton on Wednesday. That was fun.
First time I've seen Hamilton. It's very good. The British don't come out of it very well though, but
That's
it's
true.
Very good.
Yeah. Although I do love King George in it.
He's the best character, isn't it? Really. Isn't he?
Wow. The one white guy is the best character in the
He's the best character. He gets the best song.
I love it because it's like a 70s, love song with all the da-da-da-da-das and stuff. It's hilarious, It's like, you'll be back after I murder your families and tax you to death. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I love his reaction to John Adams. That's like one of my favorite bits.
Yeah.
And he's like shocked that John Adams has become president. Yeah, it's really good. I mean, I've seen it on Disney Plus, obviously.
Who's in it in the Disney Plus version?
It's the original cast. It's
Is it?
Lin-Manuel Miranda.
So it's worth watching then.
Yes, I think so. But I realized while we were there in the theater, like there are scenes that are very emotional and make one cry, especially if one is a mother.
The woman or the girl that was sitting in front of me was crying all the way from when Hamilton's man baby gets shot.
You mean his son?
Mm-hmm. She was just helpless.
Yeah.
After that.
Well, he was 19 at that point. He wasn't really a baby. He was just acting like a baby earlier.
Yeah, I get that. You don't have to explain it to me.
You don't seem to really like that character.
No, it was awful. That was the worst part of it. But she was very upset about his death.
Yes, as she would be. So that and her final sob at the end. It's just it gets you. It gets you so much, and then you realize that Eliza Hamilton is really the star of the show, and everything that Hamilton does, he does because she's at home keeping the fires burning. That and her dad's money. But yeah, it was really good. And we got really good seats, even though the woman 2 seats from me kept singing all the way through. She didn't rap, thank God. But
I swear I thought that was you.
I know. And Nick is very confused because he's like, I didn't hear that woman. So how did Mr. Gav, who was on the opposite side of me, hear her?
I didn't hear her all the time. I just heard a few notes.
Yeah, it was not me.
So
I know how to behave in the theater. I go home and sing it.
I was telling my colleague at work that we were going to see Hamilton, and she said, "Oh, I've heard mixed reviews of it." I'm like, Hamilton? And she went, yeah, I've heard mixed reviews. You've heard mixed reviews of this musical that has, checks notes, universal acclaim? Mixed reviews from who? The British? I'm not sure.
Oh, she didn't expound upon that?
I didn't ask.
There are some people who feel like Lin-Manuel Miranda kind of skated around slavery quite a bit in it.
Yeah,
And
because
it's
he made
critical of
all
that.
the rich plantation owners and stuff slaves to King George. That's kind of how he pitched all that.
Yeah.
That was a little icky.
Yeah.
But anyway, it was wonderful.
Yes.
Shall we preamble, my dear?
And you've met Lin-Manuel Miranda.
I haven't met him. I was in the same room as him.
You were in the room where it happened?
Just determined to get that joke in. It's never really worked. Shall we preamble, my dear?
Yes, please.
Give us some of that shot taking. Corrie News.
Condolences to the family of Michael McStay, who played Alan Hoyle on The Cobbles and was also Derek Moberly on Doctor Who, opposite Tom Baker in the 1975.
In the 1975?
Yes. I was going to say in the 70s, but I had written 1975 because it was actually in 1975.
No, it's good that you said the 1975 because otherwise I would have thought you just meant a 1975. I appreciate the accuracy.
He was 92.
Oh,
Yes.
a good life.
A good life.
Well lived,
A good life indeed.
I assume.
Well, you know, he got to be on Doctor Who during the Tom Baker era.
Yeah.
Not everybody can say that. I'm a little jealous.
It was a very long era.
It was. I wasn't alive in 1975. We didn't make it to Cannes, but Ryan Prescott managed to show up there, taking a break from Corrie to hobnob with the Hollywood elite.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. People asked him what he was doing there, and he didn't answer. So it's some sort of hush-hush thing, I guess. Because you have to be invited to Cannes. You can't just buy tickets.
Maybe he wasn't invited. Maybe that's why he was keeping it hush-hush.
It's not like
Maybe he just jumped over the barricade.
it's not like the film festivals here where you can just buy a ticket, and occasionally you can watch stuff on your computer. You don't even have to go.
Oh, I thought you could buy tickets for Cannes.
No, apparently you can't.
You can buy tickets for Toronto. I
Yes.
know that. They're very expensive.
They are, because we've looked into it. And you can buy tickets to the one in Colorado.
Telluride.
It's not called Telluride, is it? It's the Sundance Film Festival in Telluride.
Oh, that's a different one.
Oh. Okay. Yeah. And we've been to the Capital City Film Festival accidentally a couple of times when we were there to see other movies.
Have we?
Yeah. But Cannes, you have to be invited. And also you can't be naked. You can't wear see-through clothing to Cannes anymore. So, unfortunately, Madalyn, you're just going to have to put your organza away.
I do have my mankini though. I can get that out. Sundance is in Utah.
Oh, that's right. That's the one with what's his name? The Sundance Kid. That's why it's named that. It's not the one with the mustache who makes salad dressing. It's the other one. The one who's still alive. Because the salad dressing guy isn't alive anymore. Why can't I remember their names?
This is great knowledge of Sundance. It's Robert Redford is the name that you're
Right, yes, not Paul Newman,
clutching at.
who is the salad dressing guy.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm sure that's how he likes to be remembered.
Rest in peace. There are people who they only know him because of the salad dressing. And they're shocked that he was an actor.
You barely knew that.
I just couldn't remember his name for a brief second. I had to go through my mind palace. And finally, Lisa George has revealed she had blepharoplasty surgery to lift the skin around her eyes and remove excess skin on her eyelids, and she looks great and happy after this elective surgery. And good on her. And good on her for talking about it, because, you know, there once upon a time, people who had plastic surgery would blatantly lie about it because of stigma.
Just leave people alone.
Right, yeah. She said that, you know, all the heavy eye makeup that she had to wear as Beth just made her really self-conscious and uncomfortable about the sagginess of her eyes. So once she was off the cobbles, she went and had a consult and got it done and has never been happier. So good on her.
Good for her.
Yes. And that's Corrie News.
That's Corrie News. And that takes us ever so seamlessly into our feedback section that I like to call Everyone's a Critic. Stephen wrote in this week, I was watching scenes from 2014 Coronation Street last year and imagine my shock at seeing Kim Tae and Cindy Beale in The Rovers. And in 2016, Michelle Stalker was played by the same actor who played the FBI agent in the video game Heavy Rain.
What?
Which I think I might have played, but I digress. As far as the crossover goes, do you think there will be any lasting impact story-wise for either soap? Or will it just never be mentioned again until they need another rating stunt?
Never mentioned again.
I imagine that this whole thing is purely in place to celebrate the introduction of the soap power hour, when both soaps go to half an hour, 5 days a week next year. I assume that's what this whole thing's for. And when once that's done, it's done.
And to raise ratings. Because,
Yeah, get interest, I guess.
Ooh, how they going to do that? Oh, we got to watch.
Oh, why are they going to do that?
Ooh, we got to watch and find out.
I'd love it if the crossover was just Kebab Guy and whatever the equivalent is in Emmerdale. Just extras hanging about. That would be perfect.
I want to see a crossover between Coronation Street and Doctor Who. That would be interesting. Just like cross genres. Never mind.
Oof.
Never mind just, soap on soap. Did you know that Millie Gibson has her own Barbie doll now?
I didn't.
There's a Ruby Tuesday Barbie doll now. So
It's news to me.
our girl Millie Gibson, we could go buy her. Well, a doll
Well,
that looks
so
like
to
her,
speak. Yeah.
so to speak.
I would love to see a crossover between Coronation Street and the 10 o'clock news.
I would like to see a crossover between Coronation Street and The Walking Dead.
Oh, actually, I would quite like that. They've got that old set where nature has reclaimed it
Yeah.
before they moved to Media City. They
Yeah.
could use that.
They could totally use that. Who'd get bit first?
I don't know, one of the kids. Then Jodie writes, just saw your post of Moment of the Week and I had to send a huge hug from moi. That's right. It's star of the show, Jodie Prenger, sends us a DM on Instagram, which I think I'm unethical by reading out, but I was just so taken by it I had to.
Yes.
She writes, we had a hoot filming it, so it's a bloody joy when it goes out and you hear people enjoyed it as much as you. Again, thank you and big hugs and love.
Aw.
Thank you very much, Jodie.
I think Jodie is probably a very good hugger.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Probably the best hugs of your life.
You know you've been hugged,
Yes,
I reckon.
absolutely.
And then Cheeky writes, this is a long email, but I'm going to read out all of it because I think it's important.
Okay.
Cheeky writes, I genuinely can't stop thinking about the direction the show has taken and frankly how disheartening it all feels. The additions of Mick and Louise have been nothing short of a narrative misstep. Their characters were seemingly designed only to inject chaos without any real emotional groundwork to make their presence meaningful. Mick, in particular, felt like a plot device more than a person. We're told he has this complex past with Kit Green, and yes, there's a tragic injustice in Mick taking the fall for a crime Kit committed in his youth, but the show barely scratches the surface of that. Instead of exploring his guilt, trauma, or even misguided loyalty, we're just hurled into a murder plot that feels both rushed and emotionally hollow. And then there's Louise, who had every opportunity to step forward and do the right thing after Craig's murder, but even with her abusive marriage and complicated history, she ultimately chooses silence over justice. Justice not just for a man, but for a beloved member of the community. Craig Tinker wasn't perfect, especially in the eyes of the viewer, but he was ours. He grew up before our eyes, and his death, so sudden and brutal, should have meant more. Honestly, the most grounded and emotional, compelling performance of the week came from Maria. That alone says so much about the current state of the show. A secondary character ended up carrying the heart of the entire storyline.
Oh, that's not fair to poor Maria.
I don't think so either. Her grief, her devastation, it was real, and it was the only thing that reminded me of the Coronation Street I used to love. What happened to the sense of community, what happened to stories where the entire street would come together in moments of crisis. not just to grieve, but to heal, to support each other, and to rebuild. Between 2013 and 16, the show thrived on those moments, and now it feels like every storyline is isolated, every tragedy boxed up and forgotten the moment the next plot twist rolls in. We're losing the very soul of Weatherfield. And I can't wrap this up without mentioning Coulson Smith. He delivered some of his finest work this past year, and to write him out with a death instead of allowing Craig the quiet dignity of a full life, a second chance, maybe even love, feels like a disservice to the character and the audience. We deserved more.
Now that I agree with.
I know soaps evolve, but Coronation Street used to stand out because it never lost its heart, no matter how wild the plot. This week, it felt like the heart was bleeding, and no one noticed. I think that's a very well written.
Well, yes, very well put,
and
Cheeky.
very well put together. I don't agree with the Maria bit.
No.
Well, I don't agree with the Maria bit being a secondary character, although she
Right.
feels kind of secondary at the moment.
Right.
But there's a lot in that I very much agree with. I would say, though, that Tinker's death was at Coulson's behest.
Was it?
He said he didn't want to come back. He didn't want to have a lingering thought of what could happen. So he wanted Tinker dead.
Huh. And Sinead as well, didn't she say that she wanted her character to die, or was that Rana's character or Rana's actor?
I can't remember.
There have been a couple of the other ones that have said that they wanted to be killed off. So I don't know. It felt a little cruel to kill Craig off.
I think in the way that they've done it, it definitely comes across that way.
Yeah.
And especially in some of the events that happened this week and some of the smaller events that happened this week that almost say Craig could have had this
Yeah.
and he never got it.
Right.
And a lot of that is just the emotional blackmail, I guess, of drama writing.
Right.
But yeah, it does show that there was potential within that character that they never really chose to explore, and
Yeah.
maybe that's maybe even more disappointing than how it played out, was
Yeah.
the potential that they never chose to look at.
Right. I did like that it was Maria who found him, though, because for all intents and purposes, that's her nephew. So it was. I felt it was a nice touch, and we'll talk about all of this
Sure.
in a little bit.
We will.
Yes.
And then Sharon writes, it's another long one. Hi, Roy and Haley. All I can say is burn Craig's lucky tie. Thank you very much, Sharon.
Yes. I was thinking at the time, I hope in the funeral he's wearing his lucky tie.
Would never see it.
No, that's true. But just to know
And I
he's
don't
wearing
want to
it
see it.
and have the coffin lowered into the crematorium.
Oh, and that was another promise from Coulson. He's never coming back as a ghost either.
Oh, good.
Because you know how ghosts are a thing in Coronation Street?
Right, but they're typically villains. Villains come back as ghosts more than anything.
Oh, Paul.
And I guess Seb.
Yeah, see? It's a mixture.
Ah. Yeah, I'm glad he's not going to come back as a ghost too.
Oh, you bump into things. It's just... Anyway, feedback is always welcome. Thank you to Sharon, to Cheeky, and to Jodie and Stephen for writing in this week. We very much appreciate it.
We do.
Feedback's always welcome. Send us your thoughts and I will probably read them out. Get us at the talk of the street at gmail.com, or our DMs are open at Corrie Podcaster. We love it when people write actual letters to us. Send us your proper mail to the talk of the street, PO Box 12, Eaton Rapids, Michigan 48827. Please note that we reserve the right to edit feedback, but only in the interests of brevity. And then we'll podcast for coffee.
Woo!
We're drinking our own coffees this week, except I'm drinking a Brewdog non-alcoholic beer, Hazy AF. You see what they're doing there because they're so edgy.
Right, yes.
Hazy as fuck. No, hazy alcohol free. The people at Brewdog will say. I
Yeah.
think I hate Brewdog, like as a company,
Yeah.
but their beer's actually quite nice.
Yeah, I snuck one of the Elvis AF.
The Elvis ones are the best ones. You took my Elvis ones?
It was whatever was on top. I snuck it earlier. I just drank one. Because I'd already drunk all of my Blue Moon alcohol-free beer.
Yeah, you know how many of those I had? None.
Because you don't like it.
But that's why I got you yours and got me mine.
Your box was bigger than mine.
Drink more than you do. Anyway, we're drinking our own, whatever we're drinking this week's.
What?
But the Talk of the Street is and will always be free on your podcast provider and on the YouTubes. But if you think our show is worth anything more than the time it takes to listen to it, and if you want to show your appreciation, you can buy us next week's coffee by going to ko-fi.com, that's ko-fi.com/the Talk of the Street. You can also sign up to be a friend of the podcast through the same link where for as little as $2 a month. You can get a mention in the closing credits of each and every episode. And if Ko-Fi isn't your thing, we also have a Patreon site where you can show us some love. Sign up to be a friend of the podcast there at patreon.com/the Talk of the Street. But remember, you can always support the podcast for free and get us in front of new listeners by liking, subscribing, rating and reviewing wherever you get your podcasts.
And we will be very thankful.
Yes. I will maybe even say so.
Yes.
Shall we dive in, my dear?
Y'all, please.
It's just the one storyline this week.
Really? Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty much.
So we'll just go through it Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Cool.
Monday starts off with a pointless flash forward of Fizz calling 999 to report a domestic disturbance, which means that an awful lot of this episode is... It's a flashback. Do you know how many letters of complaint I got about that this week?
How many?
None. I was expecting some. I'm almost a little disappointed that I didn't get more.
They don't have to listen to it in their earphones.
They probably do.
Flashback.
Flashback.
It's like
Now,
you're
how
like,
many times am I going
Timmy.
to hit that this week?
on South Park.
Less than 10.
How about that be the only one? I didn't really feel like it was flashback. It was just, you know,
It was a flash forward.
yeah, it was just kind of like a just a dramatic thing to do to get the ball rolling. Just throw a little hint.
It was completely unnecessary. They did
was
it at the
completely
start
unnecessary.
of Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
Yeah.
There was the flash forward of someone calling the police to report something that is going to happen in this episode.
Right. Yeah. It was unnecessary.
Yeah, it didn't. It
It
didn't do anything.
didn't add anything.
No.
No.
So Tinker is super excited about his CID placement, and he finds Kit in somewhat of a contrasting mood. It's Kit's birthday as well. Tinker really doesn't know how to keep his fucking mouth shut, so Kit hands him the How to Be a Really Good Police Officer Person manual and sends him off to Nina's Rolls to read up on it.
Yes.
Kit was about to look up Brody on his big police computer,
Yes.
but decides against it. On the street, Sarah is surprised to hear from Tinker that it's Kit's birthday today, which is news to her. And there was a kind of funny scene as Sarah and Nick were talking about how well she knows Kit, and Kit's not the person that Nick thinks he is because she knows him so very well. And
Right.
then at the next breath, she has to admit that she doesn't know
Knowing
it's
his birthday.
He heads into Nina's Rolls where Tim and Kirk are planning a bowling night. Tinker was invited and was supposed to be player number 4, but he's got a hot date lined up.
Although she hasn't replied yet.
No.
So there's a potential of a hot date.
At Nina's Rolls, Kit wants to talk about Brody with Lou, but she swerves his questions, reminds him that Brody is Mick's son, and she's Scarper's. Kit follows, which means that Tinker's on his own when he later learns from his manual why the police are called the police. That's what he's learning today. Big day for Tinker. Kit is interrupted by Sarah, who's put out about not knowing it was his birthday, and insists that he does something tonight.
Hi.
Brody bumps into Betsy on the way out at Dev's and makes her spill her drink. Brody likes the look of this. Here we go, I think. And later the two of them will share some chat, and it looks like it's just a matter of time before something happens there.
Yes, but we're shocked at
Yeah,
what
sure,
actually
if
happens.
What does happen.
Yeah.
Brody goes into Dev's, winds up Sean, and then sets about nicking booze and biscuits while Bernie isn't looking. Bernie, though, is always looking and confronts him just as Kit comes in. So Kit nabs Brody, gets him to hand back the biscuits. Nobody knows about the booze,
Yeah.
so he gets let off by returning the biscuits. And Kit also finds out Brody's date of birth,
Yes.
which all adds up in Kit's mind. He lets Brody go, and Lou sees most of this, and privately Kit asks her if Brody's his. She sticks to the tune that Brody is Mick's. Back at the house, Mick learns that Kit had collared Brody, and Lou comes back and speaks privately with Mick in his backyard about moving on and getting away from this place and keep Brody out of bother, but Mick is in no mood to leave, and then notices that Kit had been listening in the ginnel. Kit goes to Nina's Rolls, where Tinker is still reading his standard operating procedure manual. He nips off to organise Kit's cake with Roy when Mick comes in and drags Kit away for a chat. And once more, Tinker's chips have been well and truly pissed on by Kit. Outside, Mick angrily tells Kit to stay away from Brody and his loyal wife. Loyal, says Kit. And he clears his throat, which gives Mick something to think about.
Yeah.
So Mick's not
Dick
really
move.
good. Mick's,
Dick move by Kit.
but Mick's not very good at adding months together, is he?
Doesn't
Because
appear
surely
so.
he should have a decent idea.
That he was still in the clink when this child was conceived.
Right. I don't know that it was all that well explained in the flashback episodes.
No. No. Don't you dare.
But I was just stretching my finger. I was just stretching my finger near that button. Alright. Because when we saw Lou and Kit together, Mick was already in the nick for that.
Right.
So I guess it's an insinuation that she got knocked up just before
He got
Mick
out.
got out.
Yeah. Something like that. But let's all remember, Mick is not smart.
He isn't.
He's not smart at all. At one point, somebody says to him that he is smart. And I'm like, are we looking at the same person? Because that man is a brick.
Have you seen Joe Layton, the guy who plays Mick, talk
Yeah.
in real life?
Yeah.
He's so posh.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if it's posh, but it's posh compared to Mick.
Yes.
It just has this BBC received pronunciation
It's
thing going on.
hilarious. It's like when all of America discovered that Hugh Laurie did not talk like Dr. House when he got an Emmy. People are like, what?
And he looks far friendlier when he's not talking in that gruff Mancunian accent. I don't know if it's not the accent that makes him sound unpleasant.
Right.
It's the facial expressions that
Right.
that he
And the
uses.
tracksuit.
Sure. But what a fantastic... Why am I always surprised about actors acting? It's
Acting.
remarkable. But it's so much fun. If you haven't heard him speak, I retweeted something earlier on that had him in it, and it's an eye-opener. So anyway, Tinker jumps into Kit's car later, keen to get moving on this fucking placement malarkey, but Kit has no fucking time for this and barks at Tinker to fuck off back to the station, telling him he's useless, he doesn't listen, and is shit at following instructions. All of this is true.
Yeah.
All the way through this episode, Tinker has not listened to a single thing that Kit's been saying to him.
No.
Talks over him, does what he wants anyway. So I think,
Yeah, but
Kit is within his rights to be narked at this.
Yeah.
But isn't it within his rights to tell
just leave
Tinker
him.
to fuck off?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
that's his job.
Right. He's supposed to be shadowing him. Mm-hmm. He's being a dick.
So while all of this is true, DC Green has had no orders and doesn't have the authority to do this. But there's more of that coming up. While Sarah is booking the romantic table at the bistro and complaining to Nick about Harry's obsession with chicken nuggets, Kit is in the pub dinging her phone calls. Tinker goes back to the station as instructed, and he runs into...
Swain.
You and I feature in the Swirlination podcast Swain 4-year anniversary special this week.
How did that happen?
So our friend Aussie Ali,
Oi, oi, oi.
she put together this, it's a wonderful bit of production, I have to say, of clips of Swain, Swain-related clips. There's a bit about us being the OG Swain stands
Yes.
where they play that little snippet of
The
music.
only character with their own theme tune.
And a little snippet of the theme tune and you saying Swain.
Swain.
So it's
That's
nice
great.
it's nice to have a little cameo.
It's nice to be noticed.
Certainly recommended listening to anyone, particularly those who have an interest in the Swallow relationship, to listen to the Swallow Nation podcast. Highly
Yes.
recommended.
Yes.
So Swain is furious to learn that Kit has dumped Tinker, and she tells him that she'll have a word, but Tinker is full of self-doubt that, I'm never going to make CID.
Well,
Swain tells him that he was probably told that in uniform, and he was probably told that by Swain. And she encourages him to prove everyone wrong and prove that he's an exceptional copper. Tinker spins round and goes back into his uniform, full of what passes for determination. Mick goes home and furiously takes his temper out on an outdoor grill before demanding that Lou tells him about Kit. He reads the answer from her face and drags her inside. And we rejoin this after Fizz has reported the disturbance to the police. And she points Tinker in the right direction, remarking that he should wait on backup. Aren't you going to wait on backup?
yeah.
Tinker-
Maybe you should wait on backup, Tinker.
Tinker, determined to prove himself an exceptional copper, jumps into his car, turns on these blues and twos, turns on these window wipers as well for some reason, and off he goes.
Yeah. Although, in fairness, Swain is one to talk when it comes to waiting for backup.
Oh, sure. Yeah, physician, heal thyself.
Correct.
So anyway, Fizz points Tinker in the right direction, saying it was the Maudley Street neighbours that were having a disturbance. So he strides up to the back door where Lou answers and says, everything's fine, thank you for your diligence, officer. It was just an argument, and everything's fine, thank you very much. Tinker's curiosity is satisfied, and he fucks off as Mick drags Lou back inside for round 2, and she screams in the distance while Tinker reports back to base that everything's sorted. Tinker, though, hears more disturbance and then sees Mick drive off in his van, and now Lou isn't answering the door. Meanwhile, Bernie has taken Kit back to his place and made him a sandwich. She asks to be...
Kit, you're a sandwich.
What? She doesn't call him a sandwich.
No, she made him a sandwich. So now he's a sandwich. Like when we call him an ambulance. He's an ambulance.
Which we will in maybe 10 minutes' time.
Yes. Kit, you're a sandwich.
Maybe not even as much as 10 minutes.
A hero sandwich.
So don't go skipping ahead 10 minutes if your favourite part of the podcast is where we say that someone calls someone an ambulance. Because it might not be 10 minutes. It might be 8. And then you've missed it.
Who knows?
So just listen. Get
Just
your
listen.
finger away from that button.
Shush.
So Kit's a sandwich now. She asks to be told what's going on with him and Mick, who she knows is blackmailing him. Kit opens up and tells her that he's an open sandwich. Kit opens up and tells her that Brody is his son and he's wound Mick up about it and now he regrets it. He's off to do something about it. Meanwhile, PC Tinker's on patrol. Fizz is in the Rovers and tells Tim and Sean about the disturbance that she overheard. And at the station, as Swain is giving Kit a hard time for upsetting Tinker, a drunken Brody is brought in, somehow arrested for theft, and will later suspect that it was Betsy who grassed him up.
Yeah, remember, because he bumps into her again a second time, and that's when he tries to chat her up and get her to come down to the precinct and drink vodka with him.
I didn't hear him mention the vodka.
Yeah. He very specifically mentions the vodka and brags about lifting it from Devs.
So why would Betsy get involved in that?
Well, because he was bragging to her about stealing it. So,
But she would be all over that.
yeah, well, the old Betsy would, but this is new Betsy.
Oh, Christ, God help us.
She's got a new attitude.
Betsy asks Bernie if the police tell you who grassed you up. Ask your mum, says Bernie. That was pretty funny.
That was pretty funny.
So Brodie gets wise with Kit, who tells the uniform cop to throw Brodie in the drunk tank because he's too drunk to be interviewed. Now, I just thought Brodie was being an asshole. I didn't realise that
He was drunk. Yeah, he was drunk.
In the pub, Sean speaks to Gemma's wig about the disturbance at Mick's house and thinks that he should change his statement, reckoning that it's because of him that Mick's on the street. And he is on the street, drinking whiskey in his van. He drunkenly speaks to Lou on the phone. She tells him that Brodie is his son no matter what, but that's not enough for Mick. Kit fucking green, he yells, and he heads off with his whiskey and baseball bat to get some fucking satisfaction. Gemma's wig goes off to Nina's Rolls to tell Bernie what she heard from Sean, and Lou isn't answering her door now and didn't show up for work. She joins Sean at the cop shop for moral support and also to tell him about the false alibi thing. He tells Swain about his assault and needing to change his statement and how he didn't before because he was scared about what would happen to him and to Dylan. Later, Kit comes into Nina's Rolls so Bernie can tell him what she's learned about Mick and Lou. Oh, for fuck's sake, says Kit, and he hurries off to track Mick down. After leaving a message with Swain thanking her for her belief and promising to be bolder and to be the best PC Tinker he can be, Tinker is now in pursuit after seeing Mick's van swerving about on the street. Mick turns into the precinct. Mick, you're the precinct. And see what you've started. Whoops.
Oh dear.
Mick is the actual precinct.
Mick is a precinct. It's like he's a character on Doom Patrol where there's a sentient street.
Yeah. He'll be an abstract concept next. So Mick turns into
He's
the
already a metaphor for Thatcher's England.
Right. And Mick finally pulls over after getting stopped by the cops.
Right.
Or Tinker. Mick does his best to wind Tinker up when Tinker calls his van a vehicle and he keeps on calling him sir. And Mick, I think, surprises us all by being able to spell van. Van.
And to Craig's credit, he doesn't once correct him and say, you know, a van is a vehicle, right?
Yeah. Tinker suspects Mick is drunk and goes off to get his breathalyzer kit. But the mention of kit puts Mick into a blind rage until Tinker laughs and explains it's his breathalyzer kit, silly.
Right. Not Detective Green.
Tinker, laughing at Mick, pushes him over the edge. He grabs his baseball bat and twats Tinker over the head. Realising what he's done, Mick drives off and leaves Tinker for dead.
Yeah, he gets the keys back from Tinker's pockets and drives away because Tinker doesn't park behind the van. He pulls up in front of the van, even though it's a dead end. Mm-hmm. Why would he do that? Why would he not park behind the van so that Mick is trapped? What is wrong with you? Yes, I'm victim blaming here.
Yes, you are. I have at least 3 tweets doing similar work.
Yes.
Because here, realising that a crime has committed,
yes,
Tinker doesn't secure the scene.
Nope.
He doesn't call for backup or for forensics.
Nope.
He doesn't talk to any witnesses.
Nope.
Instead, he dies. Bad Tinker.
Spoiler alert. He doesn't even put handcuffs on the guy. If the guy's being belligerent and waving his hands around and getting in your face, put some cuffs on him and put him in the back of your car and take him away.
The thing is, and we can, I think, talk until the cows come home about things that Tinker does wrong here.
Yeah.
But he knows that Mick has assaulted Lou, or he very strongly suspects it.
Yes.
He sees the booze on the passenger seat.
Right.
Next to the baseball bat.
Correct.
Doesn't think, playing some baseball tonight, sir?
Yeah.
Doesn't put 2 and 2 together there. Realising that Mick is drunk and violent and in possession of what will prove to be a deadly weapon, he still goes through the old procedures of
Yeah.
calling him sir and going to get the breathalyzer.
Right.
The fact that he's drunk is so far down the list at this point.
Right.
Forget that he's drunk.
Right.
Get the bastard arrested.
Yeah.
And get your mace at hand, because
Right.
you might need it.
Hello, hello, hello. What's all this? No, Craig, no.
Because what he should have done, rather than taking out his truncheon or his retractable stick
Yeah.
or whatever it is now, he should have had that, and he should have had the mace ready to go.
Right, exactly.
As soon as Mick got out the van.
Yeah.
Stay in the van, sir. There's a reason why you stay in the van.
Right. Yeah.
And he didn't do any of this.
No.
And he's just been reading the manual.
Right.
And he's been a cop for years. He should know this.
Yes. Yes.
Why doesn't he know this?
Because plot.
And because Tinker, it's perfectly believable. Everything that he does wrong is perfectly believable for Tinker.
But in the same vein, it's not perfectly believable because this is a man with OCD. You'd think he would be very much following every single thing in there to the letter because of his OCD. But the show kind of
the
forgot
show's
about the
forgotten about
OCD a long time ago.
Yeah. The last time they remembered about the OCD was when David said something along the lines of, "It's been switched on and off more than Tinker's light switch,"
Right.
which was a good line.
It was. David's very good this week.
Yes, it's great. This, I thought, was a great end to Monday's episode. You've got Tinker sprawled out on the street. You've got the camera panning up and away, not accidentally, I would suggest.
No.
And it's a great lasting image.
Absolutely.
And I thought, I hope he's dead there.
Yeah.
And I hope they don't drag this out like they dragged out Masons. They didn't drag it out very long, but they dragged it out a little bit.
Yeah.
That's how he should go
Yeah.
on Wednesday then.
Right.
So it's Maria who trips over Tinker's body in the precinct and calls Craig an ambulance. Craig,
You're an ambulance.
There you go. Was that 10 minutes? I'm not sure. And it's Asha and her team who respond to the 999.
Yeah, but okay, again here. We see Maria. She's just called and she's trying to comfort Craig, who has a head wound,
Head wound after week.
and she's moved his head. His head is on her lap. You do not move the head. You do not move the head. If anything, it's Maria who has killed him. Because
wow.
they didn't stabilize the head until Asha gets there. Why would you ever pick up his head?
Yeah, not even the head. You just don't move the body at all.
Right, yeah.
Unless it's into the recovery position, I guess.
Right, yeah. You could sit there and like have your hand on his shoulder saying it's going to be all right, Craig. But to have picked up his head and then put it on her lap.
It isn't severed, let's be clear. It's still attached to his body.
Yes, but you don't know if there's like a further neck injury there.
You don't.
You know, and if he's got a bleed on the brain, jostling his head around is going to make matters worse.
There's a lot of chat about the convenience that it's Maria that finds Tinker, and it's Asha who's working the paramedic shift. That Asha is the NHS for all intents and purposes now.
Yeah,
I think it's got to be that.
yeah.
It's got to be that way. That's why Asha's a paramedic, is so that she's the person that does the paramedic stuff.
Right, yes. Like the last time she did the paramedic stuff with Abby. Remember Abby? With the PTSD and thinking that she saw dead Seb on a gurney, which was left outside for some reason.
Yeah, and there was Asha at Mason.
Yes, yes.
Well, that's why Asha has this job. And also, Asha is fucking great at
She
being
is.
a paramedic.
She is so good at this.
So any excuse to see her being excellent and doing her job really well, I love to see it.
And again, Maria is, for all intents and purposes, Craig's aunt. So of course it would be her, because that's just tugging even more at the emotional heartstrings.
Yeah. And Maria's sort of on the periphery of this storyline anyway, with the stuff with Liam and
the
what
stuff
have
with,
you. So it's
and the stuff with Gary.
yeah, so it's dramatically satisfying that she's the one that finds him.
Yes.
So, Mick's swatting with the baseball bat has covered Tinker's head in an enormous amount of jam.
Yes.
He's alive, but barely conscious as the ambulance hurries him away. And there's a little odd bit with Swain when she arrives and she starts barking at Maria
Yeah.
to get a statement and stuff, and she tells Maria that she can't ride in the back of the ambulance. It's going to be her that does it. And
Yeah.
it's like, oh, what's wound you up here?
Yeah. Well, guilt.
I guess. At the station, Kit gives Swain an enormous amount of lip when she tells him to interview Brodie and asks what she's so busy with that she can't do it. She's his superior. Kit is so belligerent when he's talking to Swain.
Right.
For some-
Terrible. And finally she calls him on it this week.
But not much. When he says to her, what are you doing that you can't do it? It's none of your fucking business. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah. You can't really say that to people, though. HR will be called. You
And the
should know
cops,
that
I think you can
because-
do that. I think the cops are a hugely hierarchical workplace.
Yeah, they've
That
got
you have to show respect to your superior officers.
internal affairs is very,
And Kit does none of that.
no.
And he gets away with it all the time.
Yeah,
And it's misogyny, and it needs to be called out.
it does.
In the Rovers, Gemma's wig, Ches and Bernie are chatting about the Mick situation, the police going to his house, and David's on hand to remind everyone in a very passive-aggressive manner that Kit is no angel himself. Bernie forgets that no one else knows that Kit is Brodie's dad when she tries to suggest that Brodie is a good kid who just needs a positive male role model. She covers by saying families are complicated. Meanwhile, Tim has a call to pick up Lou and her girls to take them to a refuge. Tim, though, spots Lou's head wound, which would be head wound of the week if it wasn't for Tinker,
Yeah, yes.
and takes her to the hospital instead. She dingies apologetic calls from Kit and does nothing to stem the flow of jam from her head.
Right. Well, and to be fair, the hospital does a very poor job of cleaning that wound up.
Nobody does it. It's
'Cause there's
still
like
trickling down her
that-
face on Friday.
That dried trickle of blood just does not move. And never mind the gash up here. It's the trickle that's just dried on her face that nobody seems to care about that bothers me.
It goes down her jawline for 3 days.
Yeah.
Ugh. So at the hospital, Asha reads out Tinker's vitals as they arrive, which, if memory serves, this was Mason's experience, and if that's anything to go by, this is a bad sign.
Yes.
If you hear Asha reading out your vitals, I think you need to make your peace.
Yes.
An upset Swain watches on and then pretends that she's cool. She's fine when Asha talks to her, and she seems impressed when Asha says that she has to go back to work. And she has to go back to work because they're understaffed.
Yes. Yes. If there's any point that the show wants to make, it's that the NHS is understaffed.
We've made this point before.
We have, and we will make it again.
And I'm surprised that Swain doesn't recognise that that's what's going on, considering that's what she does all the time.
Yeah.
You throw yourself into your work.
Right.
Maria finds Gary in the Rovers and announces to the pub the Tinker situation, and everyone thinks it's a good idea to get in touch with Kirk. Bernie leaves a message with Kit, and Gary does the right thing by telling Maria to calm down, but Maria is super upset because she thought Tinker was dead, and she can't get hold of Kirk, who's probably staring at a goose on an embankment. There, says Gary.
He's trying
He's
to
doing
find
his best.
He's trying to find a fourth for the bowling still.
And that goose looks like it's got a good hook.
He asks Betsy at one point, which is hilarious.
Imagine Betsy going to bowling with Kirk, Steve, and Tim.
I think that would be awesome. It would be like Only Murders in the Building, only on Coronation Street.
There's another crossover.
And another extra old man.
Swain interrupts a disturbing altercation outside the hospital when a drunken yob threatens Asha. In conversation, Swain agrees that throwing yourself into work is the best way to bottle up that trauma, so that's what she's going to do too. But she lets slip that Tinker is off for a CT scan, and Asha becomes worried that this is a troubling sign.
I mean, it would be standard procedure for a head wound to get a CAT scan.
Yeah. Secretly, Swain is blaming herself for telling Tinker to man up yesterday. even though she didn't really say that. And
No.
she promises to find the dirty scumbag what did this. Kit finally gets to the Rovers. He's looking for Lou when Bernie tells him about Tinker's running with the business end of a baseball bat. Gulp, says Kit. Meanwhile, Sarah gets home and Mick somehow manages to follow her into her flat. Where's Kit? He demands. And he starts threatening and tells her to call Kit when David walks in from another room pretending to be on the phone to the police right this minute and asks Mick for his surname.
That was funny. Yes. He is great. It's even great that we find out afterwards that he was only pretending to call the cops.
Yeah.
And Sarah's like, well, maybe you should call the cops.
Maybe you should do that then.
Yeah. Why did you do that? Why did you do that?
Because when David
David.
comes out, Mick thinks that it's Kit and he's getting himself all excited that Sarah was lying. But we forget that David's still living there, I
I
guess.
assume so. Where's Shona? Where's Shona? And Lily? Where are they? Haven't seen them in ages.
What is the state of affairs with number 8? Because we've seen it
It's been repaired.
in the background. Well, we've seen it. I think there's been scaffolding at it, and they've been fixing it, and,
Right.
and stuff. But was it January the fire? It was months ago,
It was months ago.
and wasn't Audrey was going to pay to fix it
Right.
or help with the money or whatever,
Yeah.
on the proviso that she's moving in
Right.
to the little granny flat annex thing.
Right.
But nobody talks about it.
No.
And you'd think if you're David, that's all you're talking about.
Right. Yeah. It's like the fact that Lisa and Betsy haven't gone back to their original apartment and
That
their
was-
cat is dead.
That was flooded, again, months
6 months ago.
And no, and they don't talk about that.
No. No. That poor cat.
I don't know that cat existed. It was mentioned once.
The cat moved to Canada with David the dog. Because we never see David the dog anymore either. We got to see Peanut this week. That was nice.
It did. Peanut broke the fourth wall. We'll talk about that later. So Mick scappers and Sarah tells David that maybe he should call the police after all. Sarah, meanwhile, calls Kit and then tells David about Tinker getting attacked.
What does she call Kit?
Oh, let's not. Meanwhile, Tinker's been in the hospital with a head wound for half an hour and no one has put him in a medically induced coma yet. So Swain heads off back to the station to get her band of uniformed vigilantes together. Separately, Tim is waiting with Lou and the girls at the hospital and he keeps everyone entertained with his dad jokes while Lou goes to get seen by a nurse. Lou gives the usual list of excuses for her injuries to the nurse who obviously doesn't believe her. But Lou insists that she just needs to be fixed up and she's heading for a refuge and her friend Tim is going to take her there. At no point does anyone give Lou a moist towelette to clean the stream of blood going down her face.
No.
That's NHS cuts for you.
Yeah.
That's Thatcher for you. Kit goes to check on Sarah and she demands to know what's going on between him and Mick and he promises to tell her, but not right now. And then he heads off to track down Mick. Sarah's not impressed with getting fobbed off like this. Then at the hospital, Tinker stirs.
Dum, dum, dum.
What I was going to say, though, was how good Tim is in all this.
It's so adorable.
He thinks that cabbies are like the fourth emergency service.
Right, yeah. And I guess he's not wrong.
Well, they must be put in situations like that
Yeah.
quite a bit, I would have thought.
Yeah.
I wonder if they do any training about what to do in this sort of situation, or if Tim is just super sensitive to this.
Yeah. And I would imagine that assault often happens in the back of a taxi cab. And
Yeah, I can
what do
imagine.
they do? Mm-hmm. Do they do anything? Can they do anything?
Now, I don't think he comes out 100% clean in all this because Lou does insist that she wants to go to the refuge.
Right.
And he doesn't take her there and takes her to the hospital instead.
Right.
Which I guess is the right thing to do.
She is bleeding,
She's bleeding.
from her head.
But she can go to the refuge, she can get the kids looked after, and then she can go to the hospital. I guess maybe is what she's thinking about.
Yeah, I don't even think she's.
And she wants to
thinking
get
of-
somewhere safe.
Right.
And the hospital,
It's not necessarily the
Isn't-
most safe place,
right, as we will
as
discover.
we will find. Yes.
But the way that he was, like, I won't charge you anything, and she's, well, I'm not a charity, but he's
Yeah.
doing all the right things here.
Yeah.
And I'm, kind of proud of Timbo
Yes.
doing all this.
Yes.
Comes across, and he will continue to through these episodes as just like a great guy.
Tim and Sally are going to be those girls' foster parents.
100%, right?
100%. That's going to happen.
Not a shadow of a doubt. The only thing I'm surprised about is that they aren't that already by the end of this week's episodes.
The second later on that Sally refers to them as the girls,
Yes.
it's signed, sealed, delivered.
Yep.
They're theirs.
Yep. Sally's calling them the girls, and she's going to start working on making one of them a lesbian immediately.
But at least now we finally get to see these kids. This is the first time we've ever seen them.
And they are adorable,
They are.
particularly the wee one.
Right. Well, that's only fair.
There's a bit where they're crossing the street, and the wee one has obviously been told to look both ways when she's crossing the street.
Right.
1,000,000 times.
Yes.
So she does that.
Yes, she does.
But she does it to make sure that everybody sees what she's doing. She checks physically behind her. She manages to do a 360 pretty much with her head that she's crossing. Oh my God. Her and Doran together saying Lello and crossing the street. It has to happen.
And asking Tim for chocolate.
Oh my God. So funny. This one's a different shape. Oh. Yeah. So glad to see those wee lasses, because I was worried that they didn't exist. But also, and I know that our correspondent Cheeky had something to say about Lou, but I think Lou actually comes out of this semi-redeemed
Yeah. Because,
from a dreadful start to a character that I'm actually sympathising with.
right. And it's devastating because it's clear that this has happened before.
Oh, yeah.
Because she knows where the refuge is. Her daughters know where the refuge is. They remember having to go there in the past. So that's just, it makes it that much more heartbreaking that this is par for the course for them.
Right.
This is not their first rodeo.
Yeah. And I think my suspicion, was it last week or the week before, where you see Lou's reaction to Mick losing her job.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And it's not, oh shit, Mick's lost his job. It's, oh shit, Mick's lost his jobs. I might get a kicking tonight.
Yeah.
And they've been very subtle with that sort of
Yes.
stuff.
They have. It's there if you know where to look.
Right. It's to the point where I'm a little disappointed if Lou is not long for the show.
Right.
Mick, I don't care.
No.
Think he's doing a great job as an actor
Yes.
portraying this, but it's just such a horrible, horrible character. But Lou, do you know, I think I would keep around.
Yes, me too.
So, Tinker stirs. At the station, Kit tries to get more information out of Swain, but she's more keen to blame Kit for all this, which, to be fair, he's already doing too.
Yes.
He tells her about Mick turning up at Sarah's looking for him, and Kit is made to feel even worse when he sees his birthday card on his desk that looks like Craig's written with his feet, wishing him a happy birthday and telling him that he can't wait to learn from him. And it's signed Craig! Exclamation mark. Of course it is.
Of course it is.
Gulp, says Kit again. Back at the waiting area in the hospital, Asha and PC Jess come in and tell Tim and Lou what happened to Tinker. Jess recognises Lou and asks for a word, and Lou agrees, but first she needs to tell a nurse because she's about to get some stitches, and this lets her do a runner.
Yeah.
Outside, she sees Mick in the parking lot and reads him the riot act for nearly killing the copper. Mick wants her to be his alibi, but Lou says
Fuck off.
Yeah, she's already booked a taxi and been at the hospital thanks to him twatting her with a bottle, so fuck you and fuck your alibi. And she tells him that she was leaving him anyway. He wants to run away with her and the kids, and she tells him to hand himself in. There's a siren, and Mick does her on her. No bastard copper's taking me alive, he shouts. Heather overs, Kirk finally comes in with Tinker's lucky tie for his date, and then finds out what happened. Everyone has abandoned the girls, so Tim is somehow allowed to take them back to his place to look after them.
Yes.
That's probably for the best.
Absolutely.
He gives them chocolate.
Yes.
Jess and Asha and Kirk, with a tie, and Maria are at Tinker's bedside when he comes around and then promptly dies. Meanwhile, somewhat inexplicably, Mick has managed to kidnap Bernie
Yeah.
and is holding her in his van at gunpoint docks.
Right, yes. But we don't find out that that's what he's done until we find out that Bernie didn't pick the quads up from school.
There's 3 very brief mentions of Bernie having something to do in that
She
episode
doesn't-
that
yeah.
if you aren't paying 100% attention, you don't notice.
No.
But they do lay the foundation for Bernie supposedly having to do something and then not doing it.
Right, and not being around and nobody can get a hold of her. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how on earth Mick was able to do that.
No.
I don't see Bernie as someone who is easily kidnapped.
Seeing what Bernie's capable of doing when she has her hands tied together
Yeah.
later,
Yeah. Yeah.
not sure.
Through this whole sequence, I was like, what are you doing, Bernie? It's not like he's got a gun or a knife. He's got a bat.
Right.
You could kick his ass.
And you're wee, so you can
Dodge.
low centre of gravity. You can
Right.
be dodging them.
Oh,
So
well.
Tinker dying at the hospital.
Ugh.
I think I would have preferred it to have happened in the precinct, but
Right. He kind of wakes up and then probably because he's moving his head around so much because his head is not stabilized.
No.
Even in the hospital, nobody has stabilized his head. What are these people doing? He shouldn't be allowed to move his head, especially if he has a bleed on his brain. And yet his head is not stabilized. He's propped up a little bit, which is ridiculous. So of course he dies.
they haven't put him in a medically induced coma.
Correct.
And that's what they do for everybody.
Yes. Especially everybody with a head wound, so that they don't move and do more damage to their brain. What is going on here? Well, because they want to kill Craig off. So,
Yeah, he's got 3 episodes to die, so
Right.
let's get this moving.
yes. Oh, but it's so heartbreaking. It's so heartbreaking when everybody on the other side of that window realize what has happened.
Yeah.
Like, why have they stopped? Why have they stopped? Why aren't they doing anything anymore? And poor Kirk. Oh my God, I think that's why I cried, was Kirk's reaction to Craig's death.
Really?
Yes. Yes. I think Andy Wyman has finally been given something with teeth to do this week. And, instead of just playing with a yo-yo and
If it's a yo-yo I was thinking of.
and talking in non sequiturs, he's very, very much grieving the loss of, to all intents and purposes, his son. And I thought that was really good and very, very well done. And well done, Andy, in this moment.
So to that, I think they don't give him these scenes nearly often enough.
No,
So
not-
when they do give him scenes like this, you're a little surprised,
Yeah,
and you're still kind of waiting for him to pull a yo-yo out.
right. And then you're delighted because there is no yo-yo.
The people that they had at the window, there was Kirk and Maria,
Asha.
PC Jess, and Asha. So
Yeah.
there were people that were close to Tinker. It wasn't like
Yes.
like Betsy was there for some
No.
reason. And
Yeah, it was the people that were closest to him and Asha, who, is a paramedic, so it makes sense for her to be there.
I think they've had some, maybe not a lot, and maybe not much at all recently. think they've had some crossings of paths. I seem to remember the two of them chatting about something at some point.
Right. And I'm sure
Obviously,
their jobs kind of cross over quite a bit, I would imagine. But again, it just reinforces the fact that the two people, or the three people that you would expect to be at Craig's death, Bethany, Faye, and Beth, none of them are there. It's like, there's a part of me that's like, couldn't Lisa George have just waited a little bit longer so she and Craig could go out together, essentially?
yeah.
Because the lack of his mother, it's even more glaring than the lack of Dee Dee's mother when Dee Dee went through her horrific episodes a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I've already started writing this out in the blog for this week, but this is a bit of soap opera, and especially long-running soap opera, that is always the toughest to reconcile, is that situations like this are going to happen, and important people in someone's life
Are not going to be there.
are going to be contractually unavailable to be present for
Right.
for such momentous moments like weddings and funerals and miscarriages and all that sort of stuff.
Right.
But because it feels so close that it's still part of the same overarching storyline of Beth leaving because of Kit.
Yeah.
It feels like it more than most it should be addressed.
Yeah.
It takes them to Friday to mention Beth.
Right. It takes till Friday for somebody to call Beth. And Faye. And Bethany.
Does Beth? I couldn't remember if Bethany got a name check. I think
She
Sarah
did.
talked about.
Yeah, Sarah said that she called Bethany and let Bethany know.
And out of all of them, depending on how long we've got to wait until the funeral,
Yeah.
Bethany's probably the only one that might be there
Yeah.
because of the way that Lucy Fallon's maternity leave
Right.
ran. I have no idea if she's due back soon, but she's been off since what?
I can't.
I think she left in January, so she left
Was it
show a
January?
couple
I
of
thought it
months
was
later.
like March.
On the show she left.
Yeah.
But in real life,
Right.
she's
Okay.
been out for a
Yep.
bit longer.
Yeah.
So she might be back. But interestingly, she's had so little crossover with Craig since she came back at the
Yeah.
start of 2024.
Yeah.
They've just had
A
the
couple
odd
of-
scene where Bethany was trying to get information out of Craig about some police business.
Right. And
with-
Craig
with
stood
Neil.
up for himself, which was nice.
So out of all of them, the one that's more likely to be there is the one that probably has had the least to do with them in recent times.
Yeah.
'Cause I can't see Faye coming back.
No.
Faye made her peace with that.
Yeah.
And Miley, our kid, essentially took the piss out of Craig all the way through because she didn't believe that he was a police officer.
Right.
That was another bit with those wee lassies, though,
Yeah.
with PC Jess.
Yeah.
I don't think that was scripted when...
She
Is it,
said-
is it Shanice, the youngest one,
Right.
says,
Are you a real police officer?
Fucking brilliant, man. Oh, these kids.
Yeah.
More of this.
Yes, please.
Yes, I don't see Faye coming back.
No.
Maybe they'll surprise us, and maybe Beth will, but I can't see it. I don't know how likely it is.
Yeah. And I mean, it would only be for like one day of filming.
Right. Who knows?
Who knows? Maybe.
Moving on to Friday then. Kirk can't believe what's happened as the doctor asks if everyone's in agreement to stop. And they are. They take their gloves off and Kirk starts screaming, "It's someone to do something. He's only 26. I've got his tie. I love lamp." A nurse pulls a white sheet over Tinker's nipples and he turns into a ghost. At the cop shop, Kit wants to hit the street and get looking for this lowlife, but then Swain gets a call and everything changes. It's a call from PC Jess, I imagine. At gunpoint docks, Mick is telling Bernie to call Kit, but Kit isn't answering. Mick says that Kit is so corrupt, he's the man to get things done and get him out of this situation. Bernie points out that Kit hates her, so is unlikely to come riding over the hill to the rescue like at the cavalry.
Right.
Lou finally shows up at Tim's, but she's not there to pick up the girls. She tells Tim she has some business to take care of with Brody, or looking for Brody, but Tim knows what this looks like and reminds her that her kids need her. He's not her babysitter, and he wants to know why she ran off. She says that she needs to look for Brody, but he makes her promise to come back. When she leaves, she's immediately lifted by the cops who are outside, and at this point everyone finds out that Tinker is dead. In the Rovers, though, all the talk is of Craig, and they haven't found out yet. And they expect him to be, what is it, one of those Weeble Wobble things?
Yes,
says David.
Weebles wobble, but they don't fall down.
You let them over, and he's going to get back up again before they know it.
Yes, he's a member of the Tub Thumpers.
Ugh. It's dreadful. It's Gary, though, who breaks the news.
Yes, he's just been on the phone with Maria.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tinks is no more. Back at Gunpoint Docks, Kit finally calls Bernie, so Mick gets him to get his arse to Gunpoint Docks, or Bernie will be coming home in a body bag. We're soon going to find out if Kit cares about his dear old mum or not.
Dum dum dum.
At the cop shop, Swain is interviewing Lou, who is sticking to her story that she fell, and still no one has given that poor woman a moist towelette. She says that she hasn't seen Mick all day and has no idea where he is. Swain points out that in one day they've been called to a domestic, there's been a reckless driving incident, there's been a murder, and a teenager is in the cells drunk and disorderly after 24 hours out of the Stabby Teenager Centre. The men in her life get up to all sorts when she's not looking. That was a great line.
It was a great line.
This is all news to Lou, though.
We got good Swain.
We got
this
great
week.
Swain.
Yes.
And we haven't even had the best Swain yet.
Till the very end.
They have to let her go, but not before telling her that Swain knows Lou is a liar, and she knows Mick is going to prison either way, whether Lou tells them where he is or not. She has no sympathy for Lou, and has no idea why she'd protect someone who'd take another life. Lou thinks she's answered her own question.
Yeah.
And no one knows what that means.
No, it means that she's deathly afraid of this guy who can kill someone. So she...
Oh, I didn't pick up on that one little bit.
What? Yeah.
I had no idea. It's like, you've just answered your own question. Like, what?
Right.
Did I? How?
Yeah.
When?
By saying this is a man who is capable of murder.
Oh, yeah, I get it now.
Yeah.
So, Kit gets to Gunpoint Docks and
What
finds
would you do without me?
fair, all right, and finds Mick holding Bernie at baseball bat point. Mick slaps Bernie's face to get a reaction out of Kit. Doesn't get one, so he takes a bigger swing and Kit flinches. Mick laughs because this means that Kit really does care about Bernie after all. Or maybe he just doesn't like watching you slap an old woman.
Right, yeah. There is that.
Mick demands that Kit gets his passport and books him a flight out of Weatherfield, or he'll smash Bernie's head in. Kit refuses. It's all moved too far now that PC Tinker is dead. I could
a cop.
I could strap you to a plane myself and you still wouldn't be going anywhere. Says
Right.
Kit.
You killed a cop.
Yeah. And courts look fairly down on cop killers.
Cop killers, yeah.
Mick doesn't believe it and goes to smash Bernie's head in after all. Bernie apologises to Kit for everything and tells him that she did try to see him when he was a teenager, but his mum wouldn't allow it. Kit says that he knew this all along, and Bernie is fucking furious that he let her think that he didn't know that she tried to make contact and was just a horrible mum and had completely abandoned them and stuff. And
right.
She's furious that he let her think that to punish her. What was all this for? And she goes to attack Kit, and in the confusion, Mick tries to split them up, and Kit manages to then fight Mick.
Yeah. See, I kind of felt like that whole thing with Bernie was a ruse.
That's what I thought as well, but then it didn't seem like it was. Mick gets the upper hand, so Bernie calls the cops and then twats him with the phone. The struggle continues, and Mick is about to kill Kit, but then the cops arrive, and Bernie rugby tackles him, and Mick is finally lifted for murder.
I kept thinking to myself, oh, the other cops are just around the corner. Just you wait.
Which would have been the sensible thing.
Right, yes. Because you're a police officer, Kit. When a bad guy tells you to come alone with no other police, you don't listen to him.
No.
You make him think that you listened to him, but everybody else is busy circling the wagons behind you guys to end this.
And I think maybe that was what was happening because the cops arrived
Very
super
quickly.
quick.
Very quickly.
But Kit's worried that they're going to find out what he did
When he
as
was a kid.
As a kid,
Yeah.
which can't be prosecuted for again because
No.
it's already been prosecuted for.
Correct. Well, he hasn't been prosecuted. But still, the statute of limitations have passed on woman can't get away from firecrackers
Right.
and run into another room.
Third degree women can't get away from firecrackers.
Right, yes. And still, after all this time, nobody points out to Mick that he's the one who lit the firecrackers. That they are both complicit in this. It wasn't just Kit.
No.
You were there. You lit the firecrackers. You were part of this.
And handed them over.
Right. He acts so innocent in this, and Kit is really good at pointing out to him that that was just one thing. Mm-hmm. One thing in his life that went wrong. Mm-hmm. He's had plenty of time to fix himself, but instead he just wallows in it and just has given up his life and become a horrible person. He would have been a horrible person even if he hadn't lit those firecrackers.
Yeah, he says prison didn't make you a bad person. You're a
Right.
bad person anyway.
Right, yeah. You were already stealing booze as a kid. Mm-hmm. It's sticking it in my backpack. But it does kind of feel like Kit is finally done with the blackmail at this point. That he's like, yeah, no, this does not work for me anymore. And you have to take ownership of all the other bad choices you made in life.
Yeah, and Kit has been involved in far more serious things
Right, yes.
that could get him thrown out the police.
Let's not
than
forget,
that.
Kit planted evidence. And also has the whole T-shirt conspiracy.
Right, which one assumes is ongoing.
Right. Off camera somewhere.
We have a grief montage as everyone is glum that Craig is dead.
Yes.
Then the Rovers, they drink a toast. Kit apologises to Swain, knowing that this is mostly his fault. And it turns out that Swain, who's interviewing Mick, she's been interviewing the entire family today.
Yeah, she's doing a great job.
But when she's interviewing Mick, she doesn't ask a single question. She points out the facts of the matter, that Tinker was called to a domestic at his house, chased his van to the precinct, was killed by Mick, who abducted Bernie and hightailed it to Gunpoint Docks with a baseball bat that'll be covered in Tinker's DNA. She terminates the interview and says that she'll be back in 5 minutes for his confession. I fucking loved that.
That was great.
That was brilliant.
That was great.
All we need now is the icing on the cake.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give you 5 minutes to talk to your solicitor.
Yeah.
And I'll see you then.
Yeah.
Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
At the Quad House, Chesney is more worried about Mick drinking his beer when Gemma's wig, I think, is the first person to mention Beth. Gemma's wig asks what the connection is between Mick and Kit, but Bernie pleads ignorance and says this isn't the right time and it's not her story to tell anyway. Sally's called Sophie, who's in shock, as Lou comes back to get the girls, but her house is in a bigger mess than she remembers, so Tim and Sally agree that she can stay with her kids with them overnight. Lou is grateful for the kindness, and she seems genuine. Back at the interview, Mick has prepared a statement, and his solicitor is about to read it out, but because it's Mick, he decides to read it out instead. And in the statement, he denies everything, says that Tinker was alive and well when he left, and that Kit and Bernie are liars, and Kit has been hounding him for 15 years, and he's going to be pressing charges himself as soon as he can. Swain's a little taken aback, but wonders what
Is she?
No, she pretends to be, I think. But wonders what Mick's alibi would be for Tinker's death and Kit and Bernie's claims. Mick announces that he was with his son Brodie all day until Kit attacked him. And Swain smirks as she announces that if he'd spoken to his solicitor,
Yeah.
he would know that his solicitor was the one that was with Brodie when Brodie was taken into custody.
Right.
And has been there all day. So, fuck you.
And the horse you
And
rode
the
in
horse
on.
you came in on. And she charges Mick with Tinker's murder. Gotcha, you dirty son of a bitch.
Right.
And that was a punch the air moment.
That was good. That was good.
Brilliant.
Brilliant.
Textbook Swain.
There's got to be some CCTV as well, because Swain was talking about things that she couldn't possibly have known happened.
With the breathalyzer?
In the time, yeah.
Well, I think the breathalyzer was found on the ground.
Yeah, but
Because it had reached out and then knocked out his hand.
Yeah.
So I think that's just putting two and two together, isn't it?
still,
But I think there's been CCTV at the precinct
Right.
before, hasn't there?
yeah, one would imagine,
I think if there was any with Mason's death, maybe not.
especially in the dead end part where you would imagine crime would happen.
That bit, though, where they were parked, I think is the bit where Eliza got clipped by the wing mirror of Tyrone's car that was driven by Mason.
No, that was in the front of the precinct. This is the back of the precinct. This is back behind the buildings. So I don't think so. Because Eliza got clipped in front of the playground.
Yeah, I thought it was the parking lot that was in front of the playground. Oh, who knows?
Who knows? You can't see the playground from where
No,
Craig is
you
lying.
don't see them, no.
Yeah, and it's like the back of the buildings. So,
Back at the Rovers, there's a woman sitting at a table on her own
Oh,
who was
God.
supposed to be waiting on someone. No one ever waits on anyone at the Rovers, so Kirk goes over to tell the stranger that a man she's never met is dead.
right, because she's waiting for Craig because that's his date.
Well, we assume so.
Yeah. It's got to be.
Well, what I'd like to think is that Craig was getting catfished by Daisy and Bally. Is what was going on. No?
No.
Too soon?
Too soon.
Okay. Anyway, Kirk goes to break the news.
Sorry, your date is dead.
And would you like... Here is a tie he would have worn. Would you have gone for that? Maria is worried about how Kirk is handling this. And after that, Kirk breaks down as he contemplates telling Beth. But Beth does call him back. And so while he's telling her the sad news, Peanut looks directly into the camera. You stupid
Yes,
dog.
because someone has brought Peanut in to comfort Kirk, which is sweet.
Yeah, it was Gary, and
It
who
was-
announced that Peanut did do a shit.
Yes, yes, because Gary took Peanut for a walk. How nice of him.
Back at Sally's, she's worried about how the neighbours are going to react when they see Lou leave the house, because she's not exactly condemning Mick or his actions.
No.
People are going to be angry about this, and this is a very Sally thing to say, but
Yes.
but she's kind of right. Tim wants to give it until tomorrow, and then calls Faye to break the bad news to her.
Yeah, and also he points out, look at her face. Look at her face. She has not made out very well in all of this.
No.
And that should hopefully get her some sympathy.
Kit gets home and Sarah immediately wants to know what all this has been about, but they're interrupted by Bernie, thank fuck, and Sarah leaves them to it. Sarah's nose has been bothering her for a couple of weeks now about all of this.
Yes,
And she keeps on getting put off.
yeah,
And I love it.
yes. She's
Bernie-
also taken off her jacket, so she's sleeveless.
Bernie gives him his birthday present. It's a massive pair of pants. She reminds him of him knowing that she tried to contact him, and she apologises for being upset earlier on. And Kit shows her the elephant that he kept, hoping that it would tell him who he was, but it didn't. And he still doesn't have any idea. He says Mick took advantage of that, which I think is very astute.
Succinct, yes.
Yeah. Bernie gives him a hug and comforts him. Meanwhile, Swain gets home and immediately breaks down in Carla's arms.
Well, no, she immediately breaks down in the kitchen because Carla has evidently missed all of this.
Yes.
She has no idea. She's sitting on the couch reading a book, drinking a glass of wine. She's so happy and chipper and has no idea that Craig is dead.
Right, because this day has gone on for 3 episodes. Story told, Carla consoles her. Swain talks about Tinker being kind of shite at his job and not detective material, but today proves that you never know what lies ahead about what you would do if you knew this was your last day on Earth. She talks about living in the moment and appreciating what you've got. So in the moment, she makes a huge decision and she proposes to Carla.
Yes,
And that's how we end this week's episode.
making Craig's death all about her. And also, there's a bit of, residual Becky grief going on in here too.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah. So, worst proposal ever?
Worst timing ever.
Yeah. Because Carla looks at her and she's like, what? Because Carla is now crying too, now that she knows that Craig is dead. Which is nice. That Carla cares. Like the way she was just lying on that couch, reading a book, just not a care in the world.
There are some people, though, that I'm really surprised at care.
Well, you would care.
Would you? You'd care for a minute.
You'd care if one of your neighbors had been murdered.
You'd
Horribly.
be shocked and you'd be taken aback, and then a minute later you'd be thinking about what to have for your dinner
No.
and stuff like that. I think you would.
That's how you would feel if somebody like passed away from cancer or old age. Not when they've been horribly murdered in the street.
Yeah.
That kind of stays with you, I think, a little bit longer.
I guess Carla used to be his employer.
Right. And she employed his parents, his mother and his stepdad. So there are connections there. And I would assume that she went to work today, although we don't get a factory scene at all this whole week, which is weird. So you would have thought that if any place was going to be talking about Craig's death, it would be in the factory that his mother and stepdad work in.
They do mention that the factory girls have been talking and shown.
Right, and we see them, but not at work.
Not at work. That's fine. Yeah, so they're both in the throes of grief
Yeah.
and all the associated stuff that they've got, because that's the great
Right.
thing about grief is that it pays dividends on things like this
Right.
and increases itself. So like you said, Swain's probably thinking about Becky and stuff. It either doesn't seem like the best moment for a proposal, or it seems like the best moment in the world for a proposal.
Yeah. Like Carla says to her, you can't live life like that because you'd burn out pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So you'd think that would have calmed Swain down a little bit. But it doesn't. It accelerates it.
I think maybe it's been something that's been on Swain's mind.
How long have they been dating? Less than a year. Granted, they've already moved in together, minus the cat. Where does everybody sleep in that flat? Because you have Carla and Swain, and then Ryan and Bobby and Betsy are sharing a bedroom?
Bobby's not there anymore.
I thought he moved back in.
Did he?
Yeah, because Carla forgave him for caring about his dad.
I thought she threw him out, but she promised to employ him.
No, I thought he was we're living there again. But even so, Ryan and Betsy are sharing a bedroom? Because isn't that a 2-bedroom flat? Because wasn't that the whole issue with Ryan sleeping on the couch? Or Bobby sleeping on the couch so that Ryan could have the bed?
Oh, who knows? It has N number of bedrooms in it, where N is exactly the number of bedrooms that it needs at any given time.
Correct.
It does feel a bit quick.
It feels a bit
But, you know...
and inappropriate.
Well, like I said, it's either inappropriate or it's super appropriate. It's the realization to grab life by the collar. It's let's turn this terrible situation into a positive situation, or do our best to turn our frowns upside
Right.
down, as it were.
Let's assuage our grief at Craig's death by getting married.
Yeah,
Ooh.
and you know they're not as young as they used to be. These things can be kind of hurried along a little bit. I'm just surprised
This isn't
that
Audrey and Rita we're talking about.
No.
They're not that old.
no, but they're a bit longer in the tooth,
They're like our age.
right? We're old.
We're not old. We're middle-aged.
Only if you plan to live to 100.
Right, which is what people do now.
No, they don't. Tinker's 26.
Yes, so we've outlived Tinker, a fictitious character.
I think if they're in their 20s, I guess they have the impetuousness of youth to explain it. But I think at their age, it's like, sure, why not? If they love each other, why not? And they do. They're very homely.
In the British way, not the American way.
All that, all those moments of misunderstandings and bad communication and
They
stuff.
like break up every other week.
Well, they haven't broken up in a while. I don't know. I think I'm far more comfortable with it than you are. I'm a little surprised that that's how they chose to end the episodes. I thought that when Tinker wasn't dead at the end of Monday, I thought that he might hang on until the end of Friday. I'm glad that he didn't, because it did give us an awful lot of good scenes following Tinker's death on Friday
Yeah.
that we wouldn't have got this week otherwise.
Yeah.
So I just, again, I've never hid my failure to believe in Craig Tinker as a policeman. It just never worked.
No.
And it felt like the show didn't think it worked either. Because
Right.
they did ridiculous things with him as a policeman when he
Yeah.
was trying out for the CID the first time and he vomited in his mouth the first time he saw a dead body.
Yeah.
So they kind of saw him a bit as a comedy character in that respect.
In fairness, that probably was a very gross dead body. 'Cause that was Rick the Chin,
That wasn't Rick the Chin.
who'd been disintegrating for a while.
It was Ted.
It was Ted, wasn't it?
Ted that was in the roof rack.
Yes. Yes, that had to have been a gross body too, if you think about it.
I'm sure, but that can't have been or could it have been the first one that you saw? I find it, I don't know. My point being that the show seemed to enjoy mocking him
Right.
in the role.
And then they got two people who actually are believable as police officers on the show. So then it kind of felt like, well, we have Swain and Kit now. They're believable in these roles. We don't really need Craig anymore. And we can't take this away from him because that wouldn't make sense either. They already tried that, and that was horrible too.
They tried to downplay it before COVID, and then when COVID happened, they had to make Tinker the copper that's in situ for all this because they can't bring in another actor to,
Right, exactly.
to be the policeman. So, and since then, it's felt that he's had, and since Faye, they've struggled to give him
They struggled to find some place.
him storylines.
Yeah, something for him to do.
And oddly, today, Chesney remarks on him making bread,
Yes.
which is what my little botherer on Twitter keeps on going on about.
Yeah.
Maybe if Tinker had been a baker,
Right.
we'd have completely believed it.
Tinker the Baker.
You'd have believed it.
Or even he could have been a tinker and fixed electronics.
I wouldn't go that far, but he could have been a baker. He could
have been a
worked,
baker.
He could have worked in the bistro. He could have been a chef in the bistro. I would have believed that.
Right, yeah. Or had his own little shop or a cart at the farmer's market or something.
The thing is that Coulson Smith just seems like such a lovely, lovely guy.
Yes.
And you really wanted to I really wanted to like his character and think that his character worked much more than it did because Coulson seemed like such a lovely person.
Yes.
And the only way that they've been able to make him work and get some acknowledgement as a police officer and get some respect from all his neighbours and friends
Right,
is
because-
is by killing him.
Yeah. Because people, seemed to not respect the distance, which is why police officers aren't supposed to
Exactly.
work in their own neighborhoods.
Exactly. And the show recognised that before COVID.
Yeah. And yet,
He shouldn't be in his uniform when he's leaving or entering his house.
correct. Or, when he's just gotten off work and he hits Roy's rolls.
Yeah.
He was kind of like, remember in Bottoms when all of the football players in every scene when they were not playing football were still in their football uniforms?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was the police version of that.
It was a bit.
And it did kind of feel like a joke after a while.
Yeah, it's like death is the best thing that's happened to Tinker's career.
Yeah,
And that's a bit sad.
it is sad.
It's odd from a show perspective, and I'm sure there are people who will disagree with us and who think very differently. But when I think about the people that have left recently, Gail,
Yes.
Daisy,
Yes.
even Beth,
Yeah.
as soon as they've gone, you forget about them.
Yeah. Even Gail, which is
Even Gail.
shocking to me. But,
Even Gail.
They mention her occasionally, but it's kind of like they never existed, which is why which makes it even weirder when there are situations where you would expect them to hop on a plane and come home, and they don't.
Yeah, it's how quickly we forget.
Yeah.
But I think I might, in the short term at least, I think I might miss Craig Tinker. Because as much as I kind of mocked the character and the police and
Right.
stuff, I kind of enjoyed him being there.
Yeah. And sometimes, he unintentionally gave us reason to laugh. Like when poor young Max just laid his heart out on all of the stuff going on in his family and how horrible it was. And Tinker said, "Right, see you later."
Oh, what a perfect way to end a recap of that is by saying that Tinker will see himself out.
Yes.
All right, that was the week that was Coronation Street then, Helen.
Yes, it was.
Tell me, what was your moment of the week?
Kirk's reaction to Craig's death.
We're giving it to Kirk this week.
We are giving it to Kirk this week. Damn it.
I am very, very disappointed that we can't give it to a little girl looking both ways before she crosses the street.
Or asking a woman playing a police officer at a television show if she's a real police officer.
Sadly, both those gems have happened on a really tough week.
Right. But you know what? I imagine we're going to have ample time to give it to those adorable wee girls and Sally and Tim in the future.
That wee lassie, particularly with Tim, have a astonishing chemistry already. But yes, for the moment, and for our moment of the week, it is Kirk's reaction to the loss of Mr. PC Craig Tinker. That is our
Moment of the week.
Moment of the week?
your boring moment of the week.
Oh, gosh.
Tough one this week. I can't believe that I didn't mention how Bernie solved the mystery of the candle and the cake
Yeah.
immediately. And that wasn't enough to prove to Tinker that he should resign immediately.
Yeah. I mean, they were easy.
Another great
They were
another great
easy.
scene.
They were easy clues to follow. All things considered.
Sure.
Oh, have I mentioned how much I like Kit's apartment?
It's the same as Sarah's apartment.
No, it's different because there's lots of vinyl records in it.
Oh, okay.
Like in the other room, you can see like a giant shelf just full of vinyl, and it's like, yes, I approve of Kit now.
I'm going to suggest that the boring moment of the week is the flash forward to Fizz phoning the police.
It wasn't really a moment though. It was just like it's just the audio.
No, there was visuals as well.
Oh, it must have been so boring that I forgot about it. Sure, why not?
That is our...
Boring moment of
I was
the week.
I was trying to think of something boring that Chesney did this week.
Oh, he complained about Mick drinking his beer.
No, but I don't think that he was complaining about Mick drinking his beer. I think he was just kind of stunned that this person who has just murdered his friend
I know.
was sitting on his couch.
Drinking his beer. I know.
Right, but it's not the beer that's the thing. It's
Yeah, no,
that I
but-
had a
but-
murderer in my house.
But there's the... It's always better when I have to explain a joke to you. So I won't.
I thought that this was something that you just didn't pick up on, like the whole, you've just answered your own question.
No, I genuinely had no idea about that.
Okay.
Yay!
So it's Helen's favourite section of the podcast where we take to Twitter
Where a dog says meh.
to ask our followers to rate this week's episodes in terms of yay, meh, or zzz, if they enjoyed it, were ambivalent about it, or fell asleep during it. And the results this week were quite remarkable.
Yes.
Zzz, 8.9%.
Wow.
Meh, 13.7%.
What?
And yeah, and I think this is the highest it has ever been. 77.4%.
Wow, people really hated Tinker.
The only time that it's been close to that this year is in the episodes where Mason died.
Yeah.
So
Oof.
this, I think, is the highest result.
Yeah.
Certainly this year.
Don't tell Coronation Street that, or they'll just like keep killing characters off.
Well, they're certainly removing more and more of them, aren't they?
Yeah.
Poor Billy. Oh well. I wonder if his exit storyline will be chemtrail based. We'll see.
You stop.
But anyway, we don't let those results influence our score, Helen. Why would we?
No.
So, what score would you give this week's episodes out of 10?
I would say I would give it an 8.
8.5 for me.
Yeah.
It's not quite a 9, but it was better than an 8 for me. I thought this was a really good set of episodes. They got us really invested in the Kit storyline and the Lou storyline. And I think they did a decent job of Tinker's final moments.
Yeah, I just, like I said, I didn't expect to get emotional this week. And yet I did, which makes me feel like I cared about Craig more than I thought I did. Or I care more about these characters who are grieving than I thought I did.
Yeah, it's always
Like,
hard to see people grieve.
Right. It's really when Kirk breaks down that I start crying.
Right.
And it's like, oh, I care about the yo-yo man.
So Holly writes, really good week. Imagine the last thing you see before you kick it is Kirk telling you he's found your tie, though. Think I'd pass away too. Which is how I'm starting off the blog this week. Lily Savage writes, a very good week. Can definitely feel a shift and hope they keep the momentum and vibe going until we get to the 30-minute episodes, which I think will benefit it further. Joe says, such a good week of Corrie. David MacArthur, even though this week was lots of police and hospital stuff, which I usually complain about, I must say that I really enjoyed it. Maybe they have worn me down. Anne says, oh my god, what a week. So well acted. Reactions from everyone were spot on. So well played to all. And then Soiled Ballot, the fly in everyone's ointment, says, I'm so glad that Craig's gone. All right, let's wrap this one up then.
Yes, and spank it on the bottom.
This episode was brought to you with thanks to our friends of the podcast, Daisy, French Helen, Pickles, DT, Wendy, Noel, Canadian Helen, Christy, Shandy, English Victoria, Aurora Yvonne, Heather Westerfield, Russell Whiting, Jackie B, Brittany Porter, Laurie Anna, Tina, Stephen, Leah, Tara J, Fiona B, Canadian Jennifer, and Josephine O'Tingy. Thank you so much, everyone. We very much appreciate it. If you've ever looked left and right and then left again when you're crossing the street, write in to tell us about it. We're the Talk of the Street at gmail.com, and we're at Corrie Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Threads and Blue Sky. Or reach us the old-fashioned way, the Talk of the Street, PO Box 12, Eaton Rapids, Michigan 48827. You can shout me and Helen a coffee or become a friend of the podcast by heading to ko-fi.com, that's ko-fi.com/the talk of the street, or patreon.com/the talk of the street. Check out voggle.co.uk for links to our merch store, YouTube channel and blog. And if you're so inclined, please leave a rating and a review on the iTunes or your podcast provider of choice. And be sure to check out our pop culture sister podcast, The List of Lists.
Why does Frank Sinatra keep getting nominated for a Grammy?
Thanks for making it to the end of another episode, and we will be back next week with more
Talk of the Street.
Talk of the Street, y'all.
Bye.
Cheerio.